not on
Hang on,
YouTube.
it went back to green. Let's see if it picks back up again.
I just hit end stream on the thing, so I don't know what's going on then.
Oh, okay. I guess as soon as you did,
Let's give it a second, see if it comes back.
Still says I'm streaming, but
It doesn't say we're streaming, but I don't think we're streaming because I
Now
have
it says we're on Twitch.
not on YouTube because I'm watching YouTube.
You're on YouTube.
Yep, you're on YouTube.
Yep. I had to refresh. YouTube came back.
And I see us on Twitch too. So.
Okay, I don't know why I'm seeing it.
Got to refresh.
No, I'm looking at my live streaming dashboard
Oh.
where it's supposed to be.
It might be your bandwidth too, Steve, because it's horrible right now.
Okay, so are we back up then?
Yes, we are.
Yep.
Okay, Richard,
Okay,
let me spotlight you again.
This is 100% the fault of Restream IO right now, which is what we use to multi-stream. A big shout out for sucking today to Restream.io. Sorry, Richard.
I think it's
Harding.
just too much, awesome dragon information that the internet just can't handle it.
It's just far too much. So, anyway, of course, it's Christmas. There's no Dragon 64s. So, I remember pulling out the Yellow Pages as it was back then, even the Dragon User magazine, and going through everybody. And I remember going through everybody, and I was thinking, I'm never going to find one. And then in the end, I gave up, phoned Dragon Data, and they said there was a batch going to a shop in Cardiff. So I phoned the shop. They say, yeah, we've got 2. I said, put my name on it. I'll be down there. Hang on. I reenact it. I'll be there. So I get down there. I hand over my parents' hard-earned cash, because this was a weekday. I don't know why it was a weekday. It must have been just before Christmas. So I get down there, get my hands on it. Very happy. I haven't got the box with me. On the train. And then obviously it's hidden away until Christmas Day. I never looked back since then. It set me up for life in computing. My brother, he did a lot of programming and stuff back then. He went on to do electronics. He worked for a major automobile manufacturer in the UK, should we say? And the Dragon gave him a good appreciation because obviously, as the cars were moving into more technology and all, CAN bus and that sort of stuff, it gave him a really good appreciation of just learning from basic how computers work, what to do, low level stuff. So, and he set me up as well. Everything I did after that point was all down to the Dragon, my career. And also back in the day, for those, I never did O-level computing. I don't know quite sure what happened, but there was like quite a strange quirk in the choices that you could make at the time. So I'm not sure O-level equates to in the States, but then there's like A-level, which you do for like 15, 16. So I wrote this piece of software. I remember watching the BBC program, and they were talking about animation. They were doing line animation. They had this owl transform into the BBC logo, and the guy described it. So we just draw it, repoint it, and it's like, okay, well, I can do that. So I wrote this little program, and you could just draw it with a joystick, save it, and you could save different frames, and then it would like interframe it. It would just move lines around the screen. I had help from a maths teacher for doing 3D maths, for doing basic rotation. All this is in basic, so very slow. But I took it to, I had to campaign for myself to get onto the course. I showed it to them, and the guy was like, "Oh, okay, right, you're on the course," and that's what happened to the A-level. So shortly after I got the 64, obviously shops open after Christmas. I rushed down with my £8, and I'm going to buy something. What shall I buy? What shall I buy? So I loved airplanes, and this goes back to what Chris mentioned. I can see it there. This is Night Flight by Salamander. It held so much promise, but when I got it home, I was a bit disappointed. I would say it's basically a blind, a blind simulator. It was like I don't know what the technical term is. So you got your instruments, and you've got a really poor line. So this was my first Dragon purchase, and unfortunately, I was a bit disappointed. It's a great simulator, but not what I wanted. So I stuck back to the shop. This is obviously not the one because I took it back. because I knew the guy there. And then I came back with Cuthbert Goes Walkabout, and I just played that game and played it. I have never the greatest player on it, but that's got me into it. So, I mean, Chris Nevy, as I mentioned. So another great thing that was happening in the shops at the time, obviously, you had the Dragon Big Box, all this great artwork that was coming out. So, I mean, I think they've, obviously it's exaggerated, but they've really captured the game there. You can't really see it in the stream, but there's you see all the buildings and stuff in the background. And that was also one of my favorite games as well from Dragon Data. And you got Whirly Bird Run, obviously quite British with the Wessex helicopter, I think that is on there. And I think these sort of the great graphics on the box, fired your imagination. And it was a good game. I mean, what more do you want? So after that, I kept using the Dragon for quite a few years. I did buy a Spectrum, but I'll be honest, I think 99% of the time I just played Iridium, and that's all I used it for. So I bought a Spectrum, but I always kept the Dragon. And then in college, I did what was called at the time an industrial computing course. So that was more orientated towards controlling hardware and C. But it came down to it that I would have to choose which modules I was going to do. And it came down to doing COBOL or a personal project. So I thought about that for about 20 seconds and thought, I am not doing COBOL. So I thought, okay, I'm gonna get the Dragon out of retirement. This must have been about 89, 88. And I thought I'm gonna do something with it. So there was Maplin, which was mentioned earlier. There's a Maplin kit to control model railways. So I used this Maplin kit for digital control of a railway. So I had a little railway, just a little website where you could actually change the points, control a set of lights, and it would move backwards and forwards. There were sensors and stuff in the track, so automatically stop the train. Very simple. And I devised a whole language, which never got finished, unfortunately. I had loads of problems with that Maplin kit, which delayed everything. So it did make a resurrection in 88, but at that time, being in college, I needed stuff for doing documents, printing out a bit more WYSIWYG, well, if you call Word WYSIWYG, Word Perfect. So I moved over to the PC at that point. And I think even though I kept it, there's no way I was going to sell it. And then that kept on to, I think it was around early 2000s. Myself, my son, I thought, well, we need something to do. I need a hobby. We need something to do. So we started going around car boots, to buy retro computing stuff. And like the first car boot we went to, I got a box NES, almost immaculate, brand new in its box for like £3. So and that's when it was off. I did this for a few months, and then there was this moment of like, why am I buying all this stuff? What am I achieving? It was good fun, it was great. I'd go out every week and I'd come back with this new system every single week. And that was starting to dawn on me. What was I going to do? And then one car boot, I went there and there was a Dragon. And I thought, I can't leave it. The car boot. So I picked it up, brought it home. And then I thought, this is it. This is what I need to do going forward. So it was around that time I formulated the idea of what I thought was possible and what I could do. And I started work on what I thought was, but it was the Dragon Data Archive. That was my original concept. And I've been running with that ever since. So like one of the first major projects I did with that was PDFing the basic manual. Back in the day, obviously the early 2000s, there wasn't a huge amount of OCR software and great scanning stuff. If it was megabucks, and it was all out of reach. So I started this mad way of doing it, which I thought, I'm going to get Word and I'm going to recreate it word for word exactly. So I sat down and did that document. That was a good labor of love, that project. Obviously now I don't think I wouldn't do it that way. I mean, I've done loads of documents since, and I would never go back and retype it by hand and redo all the formatting, and even to the point where I'm trying to move things almost pixel perfect in Word, which is not what it was designed to do. So that was quite a challenge. And then it just sort of anything, basically, any of it's got Dragon data on it or Eurohard written on it, I am a total sucker for it, and I suck it all up. And including some of this stuff, I've been trying to archive everything. I mean, Duncan has been a great help. I mean, I know he says he thinks he's an imposter, but I mean, Duncan was a great help. I mean, he provided some discs for the Dragon Alpha and the Dragon Beta, which then led on to the original emulation in MAME. So that wasn't going to be possible without Duncan. He's also provided me loads of source code. I've got a few folders full of source code. Some of it I've PDF'd, and the DragonDOS source code, which I have from Duncan, is one of the first parts I have actually PDF'd, and there's another 2 folders full of OS9 software, which is on the task for this year, or maybe beginning of next year. So in that time, most of the stuff I do, you wouldn't know I do it. I do it in the backgrounds. There was like a full set of Dragon posters, which was kindly donated to me. So I had those professionally scanned in, and I set about restoring those over a few weeks. Every single speck of dust and line and scratch was removed. Even onto I managed to purchase a set of Dragon 64 circuit diagrams, which were the white prints, which are like the first generation, like a blue print, but they were called white print back in the 80s because they were white, not blue. So I managed to purchase a full set of those for the Dragon 64. They're in pretty poor condition. So again, I said about scanning those. So most of the stuff I do, you don't see me doing the backgrounds. Like one of my jobs this year was every OS9 manual for the Dragon I scanned in, which I hope will be available in the archive. I haven't put it onto my website yet, the Dragon Data Archive, or dragondata.co.uk. I haven't put them up yet. I am definitely slacking in that department. So another project from last year, I'll do a quick show. It's not much to show. So this is, if people have been paying attention in the corner of the Dragon Data footage, this is sort of my reinterpretation of that box, along with some source code from Duncan Smeed again. I've actually managed to get the software that did run on the production line via this box and an interface box. This has nothing to do with the original. I've just a mock. It's just a box to press buttons with. It's got an Arduino in it, and it's got some fake Dragon ports on the back to emulate a Dragon operating, because I didn't want to plug it in a Dragon and destroy it in any way. So that's a project. I haven't done anything with that yet. I'm hoping for a YouTube video or something on that at some point. I was going to announce, take it to the Dragon meet last year and show everybody. So that actually emulates what's happening in the factory. The latest project, I think, which is what everybody was talking about earlier. So this is my Dragon sort of reimagination project. If you can read that on the top there, it says Dragon Futures. So this was my imagination of what would happen if they gave the Dragon to a designer at the time, who designed, sort of high-end stuff. What would it look like? So this is the first part of the project. We have, it's a 10C. I used a 10C because that was what I knew, although it probably could be done with a Arduino, one of the new Arduinos. So that does the keyboard encoding. There's, it's not going in, but there's a couple of little OLEDs there. Just give it a little intro. They're not really there, it's just for show. And they show you, soft key, what these actual keys on the side will do. So this is part 1 of the project. Part 2 will be a matching Dragon case. where I'll integrate the Dragon MMC and maybe some other things. I'm not quite sure, but you'll be able to control the power, reset it, do the snapshots on the MMC and everything from this keyboard. So that was the idea. And this is USB, so it can be used in XRAW. So that was that project. So I think, yep. I was just going to say, along the way, I am very proud owner of a Dragon Alpha, which was one of the prototypes that was made with the dual 3.5-inch disk drive, which Duncan again helped out again with all source code and stuff like that. And that was a great project along with Phil Harvey Smith. And along with this bundle, I managed to work a deal, and I managed to get a Dragon Beta board. I've only got the board, the main board. There was no case or anything with it. Rumor has it they were picked up by the Dragon MD on his way out on the last day. The Dragon Alpha was rescued off the bench. It was just sitting there, so he saw it and took it, and it made its way to Vivaway, and then so when the Vivaway employees, it then made it into my hands. So I think that's the basic part. Has anybody got any questions?
Yeah, we'll open it up to questions. Fine. And did you mention that you are the admin of the Dragon Facebook group too? I don't know if you had mentioned that. Yeah.
So, yeah, like I said, but a lot of the stuff I do behind. I do the admin along with Simon Hardy. I mean, obviously shout out to Simon Hardy as well, because myself and Simon do a lot of work in the background on stuff. I mean, Simon runs the Dragon archive. So I became admin by default. I asked for something, and then he says, "Well, you better do it." Oh, okay, I'll do it. So that's how I become admin. So I do post it occasionally. I post like my little projects and little things like that, and try to keep things going along. Say hello to everybody.
Yeah, we actually showed your little project there, the keyboard and stuff on the show.
So I'll have a render one day of what the next section is going to look like. I'm working on some basic prototypes in CAD and what it's going to do. So yeah, and that keyboard, that's the first time I've ever touched CAD. So that's the first thing I ever made. And it's the basic core is a Dragon 64 keyboard. No Dragon 64s were harmed. I would like to say that, just to say that.
Yeah,
I some of the late Dragon 32s were fitted with 64 keyboards. So I bought a dead one of those off eBay. So that's where the keyboard comes from. So I did not trash this Dragon 64 to make this. Although I have thought I do have a very bad condition 64 without a power supply. So that might make its way into the 64 main board. But I am still tempted to just use a 32 because it's just so there's so many. I'm not going to be causing any harm by rebuilding it into something else. So I still have that part of me which says, no, I can't break something that's working.
I just want to thank you for doing God's work, for preserving all the documentation, the source code listings and stuff too, because that's something we're missing chunks of that on the Coco side of things too. There's all kinds of manuals up, and nobody can find anymore, original boxes of software or whatever else. So it's really cool that you're actually keeping all that and making it available to the public by scanning them in. Yeah.
So for example, like I mentioned previously, the alpha and beta boot disks. I know Phil Harvey Smith did the original MAME emulation, which unfortunately got broken sometime later. But that whole alpha and beta project, getting the beta working, it did actually get it to boot the main board. That seemed like a really simple project at the time. The alpha was not too bad. It was in fairly good condition. There was a few little things that need touching up on it. There was a lot of, on the alpha and beta restoration, there was, due to the lack of disk drives, because they used first generation, I think it was 26 pin on the beta. There was no drives available. Some of the HP ones would sort of work, but they weren't exactly the same. So I was even fixing disk drives down to component level, which was very tedious job. So I'm no expert. I'm sorry, I won't be able to answer many questions on the alpha or the beta, the internals. Most of the stuff was diagnostic. With Phil Harvey Smith, there was lots of toing and froing, of tracing. The beta board was not in the best condition when I first got it. As Duncan mentioned, it's dual 6809 with paged memory, hardware controlled. I mean, it's quite a very good machine, but it was in poor condition. So I took the mad decision, which it seemed sane at the time, because I pulled like one of the 6809s that didn't work. I pulled the video chip. Actually, the video chip did work. I started pulling chips out of it, and probably about a third of the chips I pulled from the beta board didn't work. So I thought, if I can't try and diagnose this. There was rust on pins. It was in fair condition, I would say. So I took the decision of stripping every single component off the board. And if anyone knows, the beta board is about 2.5 times the size of a normal Dragon. So that was quite a project. So I stripped every single board. I purchased almost every single component, again, new. And basically it is sort of a retro mod, if you know what I mean. It's not exactly the machine that left the factory, but in essence it is. But I did every single component that came off. I bagged it, I tagged it. So it is not as if everything's been lost. And where possible, I try to get exactly the same chip. It's like if there was an LS model in the one chip, I tried to get an LS model. And all the resistors, there was like odd resistors in there. So there's like one, there was like a half watt. So I bought a half watt resistor, where I could try and get back it, to try and put it back as close as I could to the original, but with new components that weren't rusty, they weren't corroded, and actually worked. So that machine, I only have the beta board, so that's just hasn't booted for about 5 years now. I'm now at the point, it's like I'm very reluctant to boot it up because I'm more likely to do damage, and I'd like to keep it in its current state. So I know there has been quite a few people say, oh, it doesn't work. Well, it did last time it booted, but I'm very reluctant to boot it because at the moment there were 3 of these machines. There was one in Australia. Unfortunately, I've lost contact with the owner of that one. There was one in Cardiff that I knew about back in the early 2000s, mid 2000s. I don't know who owned that or where it was. And there was the board I have. So the board I have is the only one. So I'm sorry to be a killjoy, but that's my reasonings behind not getting that machine working again. I mean, obviously, even to the point where I had Fluke controllers plugged into the 6009, and I am probing the bus by hand and poking memory locations by hand and reading them by, checking them on the scope, all on, with Phil's direction going, okay, well, this should happen, that port should enable. And the day when I turned it on, I didn't have it fully populated because it didn't see much point. And I remember putting the scope onto the RGB, and I put it onto R, and I was like, okay, there's something coming out. I put it onto G, nothing. Blue, nothing. And we knew from Phil, the work he'd done, that it said, OS 9 booting, please wait. And I thought, it's done. It's booting, and that was sort of a revelation point for myself. That was one of my best moments, if you know what I mean, in the Dragon restoration period. So I hope that answers the question about the why the beta board hasn't been shown working.
Yeah, that's great. And I think the biggest problem with our show is we have so many people, we have to be tight on time. But I think Rondelvo, were you raising your hand?
Yes, I got one question.
Yeah.
When you had everything taken off the board, did you get nice pictures of it so you can be reproduced at some time?
It was scanned, but I didn't do my due diligence here. I had a hard drive that was nearly out of space. I was short of money. I'd literally spent hundreds of pounds trying to restore this board, buying equipment, buying test equipment. And there was no way to archive it. So I did take scans of JPEGs, but they're good quality JPEGs, but they're not good enough to recreate it. But it was the best I could do at the time with the money and the tools I had available.
Got to be fair, Richard. I think what you've done is great, because I've looked at it in the past and thought it's perfectly feasible, although it's an arduous task, but it's perfectly feasible that someone could go and recreate that. And I think you've done really well with it. We talk about they talk about, oh, can we sacrifice the Dragon 64 board and strip that off? You've done it with a beta. That's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, I could, like, it was, it's like, I did angst over that decision for a very long time, but then someone said to me, how many what was it? How many how many Jaguar E-types do you think are fully original? And I thought, right, okay, you're right. let's just let's get it working. It's not much use as it is. It doesn't work. I mean, what am I going to lose? It's not going to work even more. So let's get it going. So
and that's exactly what I did with the Sprite as well, because I couldn't get it to work, so I just stripped the whole thing and started again. You have to do it sometimes.
Yeah, I know it's total sacrilege, but it is a case of let's get it working. And the fact is, I know when Phil was doing work, I was quite willing to, where does this pin go? Where does that pin go? What does this pin do? So there was lots of tracing and doing things like that, and there's lots of stuff for the alpha as well, for the original MAME implementation. So
what more does this offer than the Dragon 64?
It's in any way, it is not related to the 64 in any way. There's no 6847 on it. It is nothing to do with.
It would have been the next generation, kind of like some of the 68K Coco 4s and stuff, and some of the other machines.
Built-in 80 columns, I think, and
yeah. So it is designed to run OS 9, and that's its only job, to run OS 9.
What a waste of a design to run that crap.
I was going to say it's perfect. They narrowed it down to its proper focus.
As Duncan said, they want to run OS 9 fast, so that was the best way to do it. It uses 68B09, so it's running at 2 meg. It had the version, although it was sold originally, when it was mentioned in Dragon News, it was mentioned as the Dragon 128. Mine came with 256K. There was 3 slots on the board, which were aimed at extra expansion. So there was talk. So I think in the source code it could be expanded to about 700 meg. There was talk of a serial board, so you could actually run terminals straight off it, and also there was mention of a hard drive, but I don't have any information on that, and there's nothing really in the source code to back this up. That was hard drive available.
So it's kind of like our Coco 4. It's something that just never happened. So this would have been the next generation of the Dragon evolution or something, right? So. Yeah,
if you look at the Alpha, the Alpha was moving towards more of a business machine, which is mentioned. There was a tie-up with the British government, because obviously they were very eager to get into the British government, and one of the things it did fail at, unfortunately, the Dragon, was it didn't get into British schools. The BBC was chosen over it, and apparently the main reason was there was the lack of lowercase. So the BBC won out, despite its cost, the BBC won out on that project. But they were so eager to get into schools or anything to do with the government, because obviously, they think that people are going to buy a lot more. There was a hookup with a company called FarmFax, and with that, there was software that you could put in, and it would work out. It would keep track of your cows and things like that. Obviously, my favorite title was Cull Cow, so you can put your details in of your cow, and it would just decide whether it could help you cull your cow or not. So that's one use for Dragon, is culling your cow.
All right.
And there was talk of a Prestel, Prestel, which was part of the dial-up. I think someone mentioned earlier teletext. It was very similar to teletext, but it was a dial-up, BBS sort of thing. So there was a modem in production. Well, it was in prototype, available. Was going to be available for the FarmFax software. So the Alpha was moving that way because obviously that was more of a semi-business machine with the dual disk drives built in and a built-in modem, and they even removed one of the joystick ports to get the modem in. So that was the way they were moving, unless Duncan knows otherwise. There was no talk of like a Dragon 2 or anything like that, next generation Dragon. It was definitely moving into a more business sort of direction.
Yeah, I dug out my Dragon Alpha as well. So yeah, it's a shame it didn't make it. that would have been a good machine. OS9 was, a superb operating system. Yeah, it's a real pity. But
Yeah.
Can I just add my thanks to Richard for all he's done to maintain and archive so much stuff about Dragon. I've got the website World of Dragon open, and it's just it's a fantastic resource. Thanks very much, Richard. And by the way, next time I come to sort out my attic, I'll be in touch.
Right, thank you very much, Duncan. Thanks. It'd be great.
That is awesome.
Great to rummage through here. Because I've met Duncan a few times, and he's been a great help. Like I said, supplying discs, supplying source code, general knowledge, his stories of buying socks, all very interesting stuff. What happened in the background? There was one thing I did want to mention, because obviously in that advert you were showing, there's that thing I had recreating the test of the in the factory. There was the guy being interviewed in that was Richard Wadman, who did the Dragon Basic Manual and also did the book Dragon Magic, and he was part of the marketing team for the Dragon, and unfortunately he passed away in end of 2020 with COVID. He fell and was taken to hospital, and unfortunately contracted it there. Sorry, a bit of a downer at the end, but I just want to reflect on Richard Wadman. And unfortunately, I did manage to get hold of Richard Wadman quite a few years ago, and unfortunately, he obviously had a place for him, because we do know that he kept a lot of his stuff from back in the day. But I think that his job there, I know how everybody loves the Dragon, and how it came from the Coco. But I get the sneaky suspicion that his time, Richard's time there, was quite a difficult one for him. So I just want to put a quick out memory for Richard, even though he did do some great work. It was just an unfortunate situation last year.
Yeah, Ben Drake's kind of tuned this into him, because Ben actually was his neighbor at the end. And he actually has some of his.
Yeah, so I've seen some of the pictures from Ben, but I did get in contact with Richard a while back, and unfortunately he at the time of me contacting me, he didn't feel up to going back over his Dragon data times.
All right.
They were quite turmoil times, I guess, at the end of 83, 84, the great computer crash.
I got one more quick
Ron,
question.
we are way behind. We have 5 more people that need to speak. I hate to be rude, but we have to
Very
move.
short.
We have to go ahead, Ron.
Could the Dragon use the T1 for lowercase?
I don't think it could.
Pinned differently.
When I've looked at it, it's completely different circuitry. It's not as simple as just popping the T1 in. It's got a lot of different pins on it, so it's not a like for like replacement.
Okay.
Okay, sorry about that. I don't want to be rude, but we're we're way behind. So what I thought we would do, but it's good stuff. So I know we figured we'd try to allocate so much time, but when things are good, we want to keep them going, but we also want to keep things moving. So thank you, everybody, and pardon my rude interruptions there. The next speaker to come up would be Roberto Fernandez. So if you want to spotlight Roberto, Mark Bosley, but I thought maybe before we get into Roberto, because I was going to play a commercial break after you, the one that you sent us, that thing from Spain, that show. But I think maybe because we have gone a little bit longer, we'll go ahead and take one more commercial break. So maybe you could tell us a little bit about that. So if Mark, if you could spotlight Roberto Fernandez. Is Mark Bosley out there?
Yep.
Yeah. If you could spotlight him and unmute Roberto. So I'm going to tell you what I think it is, because it's in, if you want to unmute yourself, it for those of in the States, if you remember the show called Computer Chronicles that kind of talked about all kinds of computer stuff, this was a show from Spain. And I think it's important to note that, we think of Dragon as being from Wales and from the UK, but it made its way to Spain and other parts of Europe, because you heard from Pere Serrat being in Barcelona. So maybe if you want to just maybe kind of lead us into that commercial, just tell us a little bit about how the Dragon made its way to Spain and what that scene was like, and maybe explain to us people who only understand English what that program was. And then we'll play a clip of that for 2 minutes for our commercial break, and we'll come back to you, Roberto. And thank you for being here.
Sure. Can you hear me well?
Yeah, we can hear you. Yes.
Okay. So when Dragon Data went down, Eurohard, which was I think it was already the Spanish distributor for Dragon computers, actually acquired all the assets from Dragon Data and started manufacturing dragons in Spain, which were aimed at the education market, and that was also related to some government project to add computer science to classes in school. So Eurohard decided to give the Dragon 64 a new case, and that was the Dragon 200, which is in reality just a Dragon 64 with a different case, which was a bit more stylish, not as bulky as the standard one, and it was meant to put a monitor on top of it. And then I think it's in end of 86 or 87, they also went into financial troubles, and that was like the absolute end for the Dragon. And may I say that I find quite surprising that the Dragon seems to have spread all around Europe quite a lot, because you can find them in Spain, in France, in Germany, in Sweden, Norway, and Finland, and maybe a couple of more countries, which for a computer that had such a short commercial life, it's actually quite a lot.
That's pretty impressive. Yeah. So to give an analogy to something like what we had something called the TDP 100, which was like a rebranded Coco. This would be similar to that. It's kind of like a Dragon 64 and just in a little bit fancier case. And I think that Dragon 200, it shows up in this special. And the name of that special is Pico. They like, so press start, right? Press start was the name of the show.
Pica el micro no, conecta el micro y pica el start.
Picale start. So is that like press start or something, or what does that mean? How do you translate that title?
Yes, that's in Catalan and means connect the computer and press start.
Connect the computer and press start, right? So have you tried switching it on and off again? So yeah, it kind of reminds me of the Computer Chronicles that we had in the United States. And in this particular episode, it was all focused on computer graphics. I've got it edited down just to show some clips of Dragon specific stuff. And I edited out the real dorky guy and just kept the hot looking woman in there. So we're going to take a 2-minute break and show you some of that clip. And it is completely in Spanish, but you can understand some of the words like pixels and characters and a few things like that sound very English-like. So go ahead, and if you want to share sound on that, Mark B, and we'll run that. And then when we come back, we'll get to your presentation, Roberto, and thank you for being here.
Presenta Connecta el micro, pica l'start.
També en el camp de l'ensenyament, gràcies als gràfics per ordinador, s'aconsegueixen notables guanys pedagògics. Els alumnes, a l'hora d'aprendre el maneig de l'ordinador, troben en els gràfics un al·licient per interaccionar amb el micro.
Per l'ordinador una imatge no és tal imatge. En realitat són números de la seva memòria. Aquests números identifiquen quins puntets de la pantalla cal il·luminar en cada moment i quin color donar-los. Fixa't que els caràcters estan constituïts per puntets il·luminats. Però anem per parts. Abans de veure com podem controlar directament la il·luminació d'aquests puntets, deixa'm que recordi algunes coses sobre el dibuix per mitjà de caràcters gràfics. Els gràfics poden fer-se o bé amb caràcters o bé amb aquells puntets dels quals en l'argot informàtic en diem els píxels. Comencem pels caràcters. Ja saps que la pantalla normalment està dividida en 32 columnes avall i 16 files a través, igual que el repartiment d'aquesta pissarra. De fet, és la memòria del micro la que té aquest repartiment en quadrícules. Mira, aquí tinc un paquet de cartes on hi tinc dibuixats els caràcters de què disposa aquest micro.
No són iguals els caràcters a tots els micros?
Els números i les lletres sí que els tenen tots iguals, esclar, però a més, cada micro té definits com a propis una sèrie de caràcters per fer gràfics. Això mateix. Els caràcters o lletres els podem posicionar i fer una mena de cal·ligrames. Ara te'n mostraré un exemple, mira. Aquí tinc un petit programa en Basic amb el que podem fer un cal·ligrama. Run, cometes, cali, cometes i enter.
No està gens malament, això, Gemma. I el programa?
És ben senzill, té. Print sol, seguit del lloc, la fila i la columna on cal imprimir els caràcters. Aquest altre el van fer un parell de nens per tal de convidar els seus amics a una festa. Faig run, enter.
Està bé, és molt senzill. Deu ser fàcil de fer, un gràfic.
Els que estem acostumats a veure són molt sofisticats, però de fet la idea és la mateixa. Mira, aquí en tinc un.
Cool stuff. Cool stuff.
Oh, and I forgot to mention that also Eurohard did a special version of the 200, which is the 200E, that had the extra character ROM to allow for lowercase letters and symbols and accents and stuff. So.
That sounds similar to what Japan had to do with the VDGs, was to add extra add-on stuff for ROMs for different character sets and whatnot. Yeah.
And they actually had the ñ letter, which is just Spanish letter on the keyboard.
Gotcha. All right. Well, your time is here now. So welcome, Roberto Fernandez. So tell us about what you did back in the day, if you did it, and what you're doing now.
Well, I'm really a latecomer to the Dragon, because my first computer was an Atari 800 XL, and then I got an Amstrad CPC 464 because that's what we were using at school. And it wasn't until 1993 that sadly my best friend's father passed away, and he was doing repairs of computers and arcade machines. So he came to me and said, hey, my father had this computer there, and I don't really want it for anything. So, and I know you like old computers, so if you want it, it's yours. And he gave me a Dragon 64 with the Dragon DOS cartridge and the disk drive. So I just went home, turned it on, and I was like overwhelmed with that green screen. And to be honest, it went into storage for 10 years. And then one day I was going through all my stuff and found the Dragon again, and I said, okay, let's see what this machine can do. So I just connected it to the TV and started poking around, and it's like, okay, how can I go into graphics mode? Okay, P mode, blah, blah, that, this and that. And okay, let's try to poke the video memory addresses. Oh, so it's linear memory. Oh, that's nice. And suddenly I realized that I was having so much fun with it. That is a computer that really lets you play with it, and you know, I found it quite good. So I started looking around for information, and ended up at the Dragon Archive, and you know, I started a bit like Richard, buying some stuff and then more stuff and more stuff, and eventually I realized that there was still a lot of material to be preserved, and so I started buying a lot more, and ended up also creating some tools to help me preserve the stuff, because sometimes you get pretty badly damaged tapes, and you know, a regular program won't be able to dump it properly. So I started doing some stuff, and then I had the idea of actually scanning the PCBs, and the ones you see on the Dragon Archive, they are mostly scanned by me. And because I thought it would be quite a nice resource, and it has proved to be so. So that's and I have ended up dumping like 330 titles, more or less, not counting hardware, because also I got lucky, and a Spanish Dragon user contacted me and said, hey, I have for sale this Dragon 200E. And I was thinking like 200E, I don't know what that is. And I asked him, hey, before you sell it on eBay, can you drop by so we can take a look at it? And what he did is just take it off eBay. He brought it to my place and said, take the time you need and dump all you need from it. And that's where, for example, the extra character ROM from the 200E comes from. And yes, and then a couple of years ago, Tony Joel at the Dragon Archive also told me, hey, we are making a nice meetup of Dragon users, and it would be nice to have you here. So I decided, okay, no problem, just grab the next plane to Cambridge. And then I met, well, all the wonderful people that are here today with us. And, you know, the Dragon is the gift that keeps on giving, because, I mean, I really, for a long time, I wanted to learn assembly programming, and I was playing a game on the PC called TIS 100 that is basically kind of solving puzzles by sort of assembly coding. And I stopped in the middle of the game and I said, why am I playing a game around assembly language when I can actually learn assembly language? So I just took myself to learn the 6809, and I think for me, it's the Rolls Royce of 8-bit processors, because I mean, it's so easy to work with it that it's really amazing. And I prepared, if you like to, I can share my screen and show some of the tools I've developed.
Yeah. Is he able to do that, Mark? You're not sharing anything right now, right, Mark?
No, you should be able to.
No, there's, let me share the.
Yeah, you should be able to.
Okay. Why Zoom is showing everything with an exclamation mark here? Let me see.
Should be a green share screen button on the bottom of Zoom if you're running.
Yeah, I know, but I cannot see the. I have desktop.
Maybe
one,
take him off spotlights, Mark. See if that helps.
Okay.
I'm not sure if that should matter.
Done.
I'm gonna try it again.
Okay, let me see if I click desktop. Okay, now I know what happens. That I didn't give Zoom access to for sharing the screen. Give me a second. I would need to restart the Zoom in order to share the screen.
Okay.
No, that's a bummer. It's can I pop out for a second and then?
Yeah. Go ahead.
Okay.
Do you want to go to the next?
Do we want to? Can we maybe we'll jump to the next presenter while you're working on that, and we'll come. Well, let's see how quickly he comes back. He's already gone.
There's some comments in the chat here. One in particular I'm kind of interested in too is that they noticed that all the basic stuff that was demoed on that Spanish program, of course, the statements are all written in English, and is that pretty well common? And a lot of people are saying, languages stay standard. You don't change the syntax just because you're changing languages. I think one exception to that might have been Japan. I think they usually did change to like kanji characters or something like that, even for the basics. Did they not? I don't know if anybody here's had experience with that, but I know we've seen Brazilian and Portuguese machines that still have no English syntax on the basic.
I think there was French basic here in Canada.
You back with us, Roberto?
Yeah, I don't know if it's for the Coco,
I'm
but
back
for some
with you.
computers.
So let me see desktop one.
John Whitworth's comments is awesome. Yeah, we all had to put up with that dodgy color spelled COLOR, haven't we?
Here we go.
There we go.
It's a space-saving spelling.
So here's the first one. This one is, as it says here, CAS block viewer and editor, and I've chosen our Chucky Egg as an example. So here you can see the contents of the CAS file, and you can export the contents as binary files, and you can also check the blocks and check all the information and even edit them. But also the feature that I find the most useful is comparing to different files that should be, for example, the same game. So I've edited this block here and added these numbers here, which are not on the original. And then you can see that they are actually in a different color, and that helps me a lot when fixing tape dumps. Or for example, if you have two dumps from the two sides of a tape, and one side has some damaged blocks and the other one has different damaged blocks, then you can, for example, take this one and copy it here at the end, or insert it here, which is quite comfortable just to be able to properly dump the games.
Is this a private tool that you use, or is this also something that's available in main?
That's actually I have it on a public repository on Bitbucket.
Okay, because that was basically like a raw dump, like similar how we would use like a hex viewer to look at source code or look at disk data. That was kind of raw data of what was in the cassette storage.
Right? It looks like because you have the two different, where you can have the two different sources. If you have a tape that's damaged in part of it and it's damaged on the other side in a different part, you can actually kind of mix and match the two together to make it fully working.
Take the good parts from both and repair both sides of that. Right?
That's cool.
Yeah, it's very useful.
And then I have to share them one by one because for some reason I cannot share the whole second desktop. So here it goes. I also did this.
Ooh, so SG24. Look at that.
Like a small editor just to so you can select the different combinations of characters and draw around, and you can also get some images and get them converted to SG24.
Oh, look at that.
And then you can actually just
is that Grant Leedy right there that you're showing us?
No, it's actually a character from a webcomic called Looking for Group.
Oh.
And yeah, that was a, you know, many images are too noisy to automatically convert to SG24.
Yeah.
But this was more cartoony, and that actually works pretty well. And then, as you can see, you can add more stuff, and you can either save it as an image file for your computer or export it to an SG24 file for loading on the Dragon or the
nice.
Or the Coco.
It looks like I was thinking of Erico when I saw this, and he's out there in the live chat. Erico does a lot of stuff with semi-graphics, so I think he's going to probably want to reach out to you to learn about this tool. This is gorgeous.
Yeah, and I think I mean I'm always thinking on ways on improving it, so any suggestions are welcome.
Yeah, that is gorgeous.
So let me go to the next one. This one is still private because it's always under development. But as you can see here, I use this also for fixing tapes that are actually bad, and this tool lets me define the width of the pulses. And as you can see down here that I can show you the actual bytes, how they are organized in the pulse stream. And then this is like the previous tool. You can see the blocks here. And for example, if you want to go here to the beginning, you can just click here, and this is the beginning of the block, the 3C mark. And the idea is that sometimes it's with a regular audio editor, it's quite difficult to fix some errors. So, for example, if suppose that these pulses are missing, you can see that the block list refreshed, and now it's showing that the type is a weird type, and the CRC doesn't match. So it's like that is something that when you see it, the wrong bit is quite obvious. It's like, okay, this is missing 2 pulses, so I can just click here and just add the 2 pulses, and that's fixed.
This is almost like the molecular level of what's on the cassette tape.
Basically, yes. And for example, I can also change some parameters, like for example, I can change the amplitude and such things. And I mean, it's quite a useful tool, but as I said, it's always under development. So I still haven't released it, and I will be doing it someday, but not yet. It's still a lot of work to do. And one thing that you can also do is I made it so I can add different machines. So, for example, I can read Epson HX20 tapes, and also tapes from the original IBM PC. You can just run it through here, and it will know how to decode the bytes.
Wow.
And check for that. So yeah, and you can do things like watch it the pulses in decibel mode or normal mode. And also one nice thing is, for example, if one pulse here is not detected, automatically you can click on go to error, and it will go here, and you will know how to fix this error.
Wow, this is pretty impressive.
That's like mad scientist level comprehension of what's going on in this.
I was going to ask Ciaran if he'd maybe use this to make his gussied up block down tape with this here to.
Or at least we could possibly find some Easter eggs with it at this point. Who knows?
So yes, that's the stuff I do. And when I'm a bit not in the mood for programming, which let's be honest, it's quite rare. But on such rare occasions, I like to do some pixel art, and I find the 6847 quite challenging to do anything remotely beautiful with it. But I mean, let's face it, the palettes are not the most gorgeous palettes in the world. But that adds a layer of challenge, which I find interesting. And I, for example, did this loading screen for Buzzer Bait.
That is gorgeous.
Yeah.
And I did also one for Cuthbert in the Jungle. Just
oh man, that is awesome. That is really good. Yeah, I mean, when you have such a crappy palette to work with, to get anything that looks good is. Yeah, and I like that dark blue for the background and Buzzer Bait. That's really catchy.
Yeah, and the thing is, you can actually play with the red and the blue to create that
sort of magenta.
Yeah, some dithering effects. A little bit, yeah.
Anything with Punyan colors.
Yeah. Yeah, that is gorgeous.
Yeah, and the second palette is much worse.
Yes,
And,
yes.
So yeah, I mean,
And
you can do quite nice stuff if you add in the PAL artifacting, which I also implemented in MAME, because Pere and Simon were doing his test for getting I think it was 20 something, 24, 28 colors by alternating the two palettes every two scan lines. And there was no emulator that could actually show it. And I think that I thought that was a pity. So I said, okay, let's dig a bit into the source code for MAME, which I mean, it can be quite on the heavy side of things, because it's obviously quite a complex program. But I did manage to get a solution that worked, and I checked that the colors were right by comparing with the result of the video capture device. And I just submitted the changes, and there they are. I know some people are not happy that the colors are not as bright anymore, but that's and I know Ciaran would disagree with me, because he actually measured the voltage coming out of the 6847. But you know that there's quite a difference between the voltage that gets out of the chip and the final result on the screen. And I think that the results are actually much closer to what I implemented. But yeah, so yeah, and I actually tested Simon and Pere's program, and it was actually producing the right colors. So that's it for me.
All right.
Cool.
Does anybody have any questions for Roberto?
I really like his cassette editing thing.
That
that's
cassette
amazing.
tool is wicked awesome.
Yeah, there's a similar one for the ZX81 I reconstructed a lot of my old tapes with, but doesn't look half as slick as that.
Yeah, visual is definitely helpful, especially for me, since I know enough to be dangerous. But when I can see information, at least it makes it more comprehensible. And a guy in our group, Paul Fiscarelli's got tools like that look at data on disks and some of the flux data on the disk media too. So when you kind of look at it under that electron microscope and you're getting into the protons and neutrons of what's going on this media, it kind of gives you a real appreciation for how this stuff really works. It's not only just the zeros and the ones, but it's the analog signaling and the encoding and the space between the gaps. And there's a lot of things going on to make this media translate back into zeros and ones that we just take for granted. So it's cool that you're able to comprehend that and wrap your brain around it and put it in a way that we can all see it. But I also say, man, hats off to the people who came up with this crap back in the 50s. You know what I mean? Because everything we're doing now on floppy drives and hard drives has been around since the 50s. And how the hell these guys come up with this crap? But thank God they did, right? So, so cool. Thank you, Roberto. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being here. There's a lot of people who do a lot of things that for the machine, but we're going to keep the presentation train rolling. And this next presenter, if you want to spotlight for us, Mark, Simon Waterfield, we've been showing off you in our Game On news for a while because you do a lot of Dragon stuff on Twitch, and welcome to the program, Simon, and thank you.
Yeah, well, I'm pretty much a gamer only, but I have dabbled in a bit basic programming back in the day. I got my first computer on my 10th birthday back in 1983. It was Dragon 32. I had a few games with it. I can't remember what ones I initially got with it. A few basic games and text adventures, I believe. But I did end up acquiring over time quite a lot of games, and which was quite good considering the games were not widely available where I around there. The only ways back then, because there was no internet, and the only way was to go to a shop, buy the games, or mail order them. And I remember the town where I lived, W.H. Smith was the place to go to buy the games, and it only ever stocked one Dragon title, and that was a game by Mastertronic called Bug Diver, where you were, I don't know if any of you are familiar with it, where you were a little bug and you used to dive down, collect the eggs, come up, avoid being eaten by the fish. So pretty much everybody I knew who had a dragon, which was only about 2 or 3 of us, owned that game. Once in a while, my dad would drive me somewhere else where I could go to a newsagent's. I can't remember what the newsagent's was I used to go to, but there was one in a town a little bit further away from me where I used to go and buy games from. And I had quite a healthy mail order relationship with Microdeal, which acquired a lot of the games, a lot of the Cuthbert games and stuff like that. I did have a friend who lived next door to me that owned a Dragon. He used to come and help me. Mostly he would help me with, I would buy magazines such as Dragon User and Input magazine, and I would type in the limited Dragon programs that Input magazine used to have at the time. And he would come in there and we'd kind of do that together, which was quite interesting. I do remember another one of my friends. He said one time, it was quite funny. He said, "Oh, Simon's computer comes up with its stupid green screen." So I remember saying to him, "Well, it's better than your stupid Commodore 16," which the computer was a computer at the time. But to be fair to them, they did have a BBC as well, which was back then. Or BBC was, to be fair, BBC was some of the BBC models that I used in school were 36K anyway, which weren't a lot more powerful than the Dragon, really. It's just that they could do more things. I remember I did make my friends because I actually managed to, I don't know how I acquired it, but I managed to acquire Starship Comedian on cartridge, and everyone was like, "Oh, a cartridge, you have a cartridge." And I was like, "Oh my goodness." And nowadays you think, oh yeah, because of course everything was on tape back at the time. One of my favourite games which came out of the Dragon was not actually the original Dragon title. It was we mentioned earlier on in the broadcast Manic Miner and its sequel Jet Set Willy, which is one of my favourite games of all time, I would say. And the Dragon version is still probably my favourite version, probably because that's the one I used to play. I remember thinking to myself, how could anyone ever complete this game? How can anyone ever finish it? I guess the thing was, I guess it's doable, but I don't know how, even to this day. But there was a cheat code I remember for the Dragon. I think I must have got it from Dragon User, where you could press the M, A, and X keys down at the same time, and you could cycle to whichever room you wanted, and you could put your main character in any place on that room and then just play. So I did it that way just to see what happened when you finished it. And even that was a challenge. And I was literally spent the best part of 45 minutes going down, going and moving Willy onto every item and quickly pausing the game and doing this. I died several times doing that. I remember there was a couple of pokes you could use. You typed in the basic program and ran it before you loaded the game. One gave you infinite lives, one gave you invincibility and stuff like that. But I still don't know how one can complete that game. Another one of my favourites was Chucky Egg, but I think we've spoken a lot about Chucky Egg in this broadcast already, so I don't think there's much more that needs to be said about that. And Backtrack was also mentioned earlier on, and I used to really like that game as well. And I remember I believe it was its sequel, Eddie Steady Go, and that was noisy, very noisy, but it was. It's a half decent game, but I still play it today. Unfortunately, I no longer own a actual Dragon computer. I use an XRAW now, and as Curtis also somebody mentioned, I stream it onto my Twitch channel. I don't only stream Dragon on there, but when I do want to stream some Dragon games, that's where I do it. I play a lot of them offline, and I still get as much, even though I owned a Commodore 64, I owned an Amiga. 5 fond memories of all of them, but I guess probably because it was my first computer, Dragon is always going to be my favourite one. I don't really think I can top that. And yeah, I used to like all those games I mentioned. Jet Set Willy. I used to like the kind of games, platform games, collect all the items, move on to the next.